is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Comic Book Corner. I'm Steve, and I'm flying solo tonight because Joe is out gallivanting with his brother in Seattle and San Francisco, having a good old time, seeing Pearl Jam and going to bars and checking out cool comic book museums and things like that. Wish I was there. We do host a show called Dinner and a Podcast with our buddies Mike and Seb, and each week me and Joe want to share our thoughts with you on our favorite comic books, new and old. This is a review show, so there will be spoilers, and all books that we discuss will be listed in the show info below. If you want us to read any books or hear our thoughts on any particular writer or artist, please contact us on social media at Dinner and a Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, and email us at dinnerandpodcast@gmail.com. What's your pull list? What are you reading? What should we be reading? This week, it's going to be Steve's Pull List Volume 2. Whenever Joe cannot make it, I attempt to talk to you about the books that I read each week. Now, I know I'm not the comic book aficionado that Joe is. Joe knows so much about comics, puts me to shame. But I'm just going to talk to you about the books I read for the week. And let me tell you, there's a ton of books. I was a little bit behind because I'm not feeling too well. I know, nobody really cares, but you can hear it in my voice. But I'm going to do my best. But first, give you some news. And the way I like to give my news about comic books is talk about what's stuffed in my little pull list bag every week from my comic shop, Comic Book Jones on Staten Island, which you will hear in the commercial later, I'm sure. But one of the things is a flyer for a new comic called Cemetery Beach. Not sure if anybody's interested in this. It says Warren Ellis and Jason Howard invite you to visit scenic Cemetery Beach. Add it to your pull list if you are into, add it to your pull list if you love Warren Ellis's Trees, Injection, or Transmetropolitan, or if you enjoyed Mad Max's Fury Road and the pulse-pounding plot points, or if you're looking for a story with similar world building to Kirkman and DeFelici's Oblivion Song, you're going to love Cemetery Beach. So, not sure if anybody's into that, but Cemetery Beach #1, it'll hit the shelves on Wednesday, September 12th. So look out for that if you're interested in Warren Ellis's new book. Also, my comic book shop gives me a little newspaper. It's called Comic Shop News. Inside is usually some cool little tidbits that I like to talk about. And one thing that's inside is a new Batman book called Batman 3 Jokers by Jeff Johns and Jason Fabok. I love both those guys. Jeff Johns gave us a lot of really good Flash stories. He gave us a lot of really good Green Lantern stories, and Jason Fabok is one of my favorite artists right now. He's amazing. Love his work on the Justice League that he's been doing. It's really great. That seems really cool. Let's see what else in this little magazine struck my fancy. Oh yeah, a lot of Batman stuff. I'm going to talk to you a lot about Batman. Sorry for all the Marvel fans out there. Scott Snyder is doing a 6-part mini series called The Batman Who Laughs, which is going to pit Batman up against the Batman Who Laughs from the Dark Multiverse, from Dark Knight's Metal. So if you didn't read Dark Knight's Metal, I would suggest, number one, that you do go read Dark Knight's Metal because it's amazing. Get all the tie-ins, get everything. There's only about 11 or 12 books for the whole story, I think. And so if you want to read this book, the tie-ins, I would assume you need to read Dark Knight's Metal prior to reading that. I think that might help. That might be a good help. One other thing I got from my comic book store, put the newspaper away, is DC Nation, issue number 3, which is pretty cool. It's kind of like the Marvel Previews book for DC Comics. And inside of it were 3 stories that kind of tickled my fancy a little bit. One of them dealt with the new Green Lantern book that's coming out, which is going to be written by Grant Morrison. They did give you a picture. I don't know if it's the cover of the first issue. It might be the cover of the first issue, but I'm not sure. And they give you kind of like a summary of what the plot's going to be for the issues. And it's not going to be your typical, it says here, the days of apocalyptic nihilistic epics are done. We survived the end times. We no longer have the luxury of Armageddon to occupy our time with flamboyant demands. Blah, blah, blah. No Hector Hammond is going to be in this. No Star Sapphire is going to be in this. No more massive endgame stories that leave Oa in ruins, the core decimated, and the Guardians revealed as enemies. So it's going to be, from what I understand, this is going to be like Cops, the TV show. Did you ever watch Cops? Bad boy, what you want? You know that one? Everyone knows that one. Of course you know what that is. And basically just following cops around arresting criminals. And I think that's what this is going to be about. if there's not going to be any big endgame stories. And like I said, I think they give you the cover of the first issue, and the art's kind of wonky. If anybody sees this, if you agree with me, let me know. Hal Jordan looks kind of wonky in this. His legs look way too small for his chest and neck, and his arm looks like it's not turning the right way. But that's just me. I mean, these people can draw a hell of a lot better than me, so I'm just being nitpicky because I have a podcast and I can do that. What else? What else seemed cool in here? They do a lot of cool stuff in this book. Heroes in Crisis. Joe and I talked about this last week, I think, and I was kind of excited about it. I don't know how I feel about it now. It seems like it's going to be very gloomy. From what I understand, this is like it's kind of like heroes in rehab. Not rehab, like a trauma center, like a post-traumatic stress syndrome trauma center, like where a soldier would have to go after he comes back from war, after seeing a lot of crazy shit. And I just don't know if I want to see my hero suffering all the time. I don't know if that's going to be it, but that's kind of the feel I'm getting. Now, it's written by David King, who at this point, for me, can do no wrong. Even his he's been doing Batman. He's done like the last 50 issues of Batman Rebirth, and for me, it's been one of my favorite runs. He's doing a really good job. Even the wedding thing, I didn't mind. I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I enjoyed it. And he's writing this, and so I'm sure it's going to be interesting, and I'm sure it's going to be cool. But like it says that it's going to. I don't know if the first issue revolves around Booster Gold and Harley Quinn, or if it's the whole series. But Booster Gold's one of my favorite characters. You might know that from listening to Dinner and a Podcast. I talk about Booster a lot. And the reason I like him is because he's a fool, and he's arrogant, and he doesn't know when to shut up, and he's going to be like one of the main points of this book, and he's going to be very sad in this book, I think. And I don't want Booster to be sad. He's the man. I love Booster. He's made a lot of questionable decisions, but you know, that's how he deals with it. But we'll see. I'm going to give it a shot, just like I give everything DC a shot. I don't give everything Marvel a shot, and I know a lot of people out there are mad at me for that, I'm sure. But, hey, DC does some things wrong. They don't do everything right. I'm not really enjoying Doomsday Clock that much, but that's a whole nother day. Supergirl. She's got a new look. Don't know if anybody's seen her new look. I think I might want to try this book out. I'm not sure. But Supergirl, if anybody's kept up with the Man of Steel or has kept up with the new Superman stuff, you know that there's a new villain called Rogol Zar. It's like a big hulking kind of alien creature that supposedly is the real reason that Krypton was destroyed. He was the one who destroyed Krypton. He wants to rid the universe of all Kryptonians. And he came to Earth to kill Kal-El. And Supergirl helped Superman beat him and put him into the Phantom Zone, and then she went off to kind of research Rogol Zar, where he came from, what he's about, and that's the last you kind of see of her before her new line or her new arc starts in her own book. But she's got new duds. She's not wearing like the cute little Supergirl kind of schoolgirl outfit that we're accustomed to with the pleated skirt and the blue Superman shirt, and she's now wearing like what looks to be like a black Superman kind of vest with a silver Superman logo, blue pants with black boots and black gloves, and her cape kind of flows around her, even through the front of her, which is kind of cool. And she looks like a badass, man. She's holding a battle axe. I think that's Rogol Zar's battle axe. And but yeah, I think I'm gonna give that a shot. That looks pretty neat. And one of the covers is her holding like a Green Lantern by the scruff of the neck after she beat him up. So that looks pretty cool. I'll give that a shot. I like Supergirl. She's pretty neat. And then there's this new book, which I don't know much about because I didn't read the article, but looks pretty interesting. The pictures look interesting, and some of the little quotes that they give you seem pretty interesting. It's called DC Comics' new Black Label, which looks pretty cool. And one of the stories that they're going to do is going to take Batman to a darker adult space, which is pretty interesting. And the artwork, I don't know if this is actual artwork from the book, but it looks phenomenal. Looks amazing, this artwork. Looks like Norman Rockwell painted it. Looks great. But Batman's not the only one that they're doing. They're also going to be doing what's called Batman The Last Night. That's going to come out in October. Then you got Superman Year One. Comes out in November. That could be interesting. That's by Frank Miller and John Romita Jr. Ooh, I might not buy it because it's John Romita Jr. But I might buy it because it's Frank Miller. Who knows? We'll just have to see. Then the other history of the DC Universe is called, that's a book title. That's coming out in December. Wonder Woman Historia, The Amazons, comes out in the spring of 19. And then Wonder Woman, Diana's Daughter, comes out. Wonder Woman's disappearance plunges the world into dystopian fall for 20 years. Introduces Diana's daughter on a search for both her mother and her place in the world. Interesting stuff. So yes, that's what I read in here. That's the news for me. Whole bunch of books coming out. Mr. Miracle 12's coming out. That means that run of Mr. Miracle is going to be ending. That's been touted as one of the best things of the year. So I'm definitely, I actually have been not hoarding those, but I buy them every week, and I just put them in a bag and a board, and I put them on the shelf because I don't want the trade. I like having all the individual books, and then I'm just going to read them as soon as they all come out. So it took me, because it comes out once a month, it took me a year to collect all the books, and as soon as it comes out, should be early September or mid-September, that book should come out. I'm going to read them all, and then we'll do a show on that, because I know a lot of people are reading that book. So, tonight, what am I going to talk to you about? I got some books here. I got some Marvel books. I got some DC books. But before I get to all my books, let's hear from a word from our sponsor.
Comic Book Corner, brought to you by Comic Book Jones, located at 2220 Forest Avenue in Staten Island, and Royal Collectibles at 9601 Metropolitan Avenue in Queens, New York. Visit these fine establishments for all of your comic book needs.
Okay, so now what Joe and I normally do is we do a show ahead of time. So when we're recording this show, we're releasing the previous week's show on the same day. So today, I released Death of Superman. What I would be talking about today would be the week's books that I bought today. But that didn't actually happen because I've been a little under the weather and I've been behind, so I got a lot of books to catch up on, and that's all I did. While I was laying on the couch, groveling in my own self-pity, I decided to read, oh boy, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 20 books in the past 2-3 days, which is a lot for me. But one book that I want to talk about is Justice League number 5. I don't know if anybody's been keeping up with Justice League. This is now my comic book store has been giving me these awesome covers. They're variant covers of, this is actually one cover that I didn't want, but I'm not going to yell at my comic book store for it because they mean their best. This week, the normal cover that came out was the Legion of Doom cover. I didn't get the Legion of Doom cover. I got the variant cover with Cyborg on it, which is pretty cool. And last week I got the variant cover with Hawkgirl on it, or 2 weeks ago. But this issue, gives us a background on Lex Luthor and why he's starting the Legion of Doom. Because he used to be a good guy, or he tried being a good guy for a little while, or, kind of masqueraded as being a good guy for a little while. This is written by Tinian the Fourth and penciled by Mankey. And it's a good book. It's a good book. Like I said, it's given us a background of Lex Luthor. It's him going around to different members of the Legion of Doom before he formed the Legion, trying to convince them that he has what they need to kind of overthrow their enemy or their nemesis. So you see him go to Sinestro and tell him, I got what you need to defeat the Green Lanterns. He goes to Grodd and says, I got what you need to stop the Speed Force. He goes to the Joker and says, I got what you need to stop Batman, yada, yada, yada. Same thing with Cheetah and Black Manta. But what he does, which is pretty neat, he goes into the future. And in the future, he's dead, obviously, because he's mortal and he's human. But in the future, they all recognize him as Lex Luthor. And they have built monuments to him, and they kind of worship him as, like, not a god, but like as a really important figure in history. And he finds somebody, and he's like, well, what's the deal here? And they're like, well, you were right. You didn't know you were right at the time, but everything that you said when you were alive ended up being correct in the future. You didn't know you were right yet, but in the future, everything that you talked about ended up being right, but you weren't around. You didn't live long enough to see that you were right. So this kind of this kind of pisses off Lex Luthor, and he goes back to present day to figure out what it was that he got right. And it kind of goes back to one of the first issues of Justice League where it shows Luthor in this like hick town, or this like little Midwestern town. He goes into like a diner or like this bar, and he finds a secret door that his father left for him. And it kind of gives you the background of why he started the Legion of Doom, which was pretty neat. I'm enjoying this book. This issue kind of came a little bit to a halt for me from the last issue. The last issue is the reveal that Superman's body and Martian Manhunter's body have been taken over by Lex and the Joker. So I thought this book was going to really ramp it up, but it doesn't. It kind of slows down and gives you the history of what Luthor's plot points are, or what Luthor's whole mission is going to be about. Still pretty good book. Good book. It held my interest, so I'm going to keep going with that. Can't wait to see where that leads. Then switch it over to Marvel. We got the Marvel 2-in-1, number 7 and number 8. Joe and I did a whole breakdown of the first 6 issues, and I had 7 and 8 sitting around for about 2 months before I decided to get sick and read them. But it's pretty neat. Pretty good story so far. So just to give you a background of what happened in 1 through 6 was Ben, or the Thing, was given a artifact by Dr. Doom that was given to him by Reed Richards, and it had a message from Reed in it, kind of like a hologram from R2-D2 to Princess Leia with Obi-Wan Kenobi, or from Princess Leia to Obi-Wan Kenobi through R2-D2, telling them to kind of search the multiverse for them, and maybe that they'll find them. So they've been going on journeys through the multiverse with this artifact that Reed Richards left for them, and they've been going to all different worlds trying to look for Sue and Reed and the kids. And Ben the whole time kind of knows that they're not going to find the family, but he's given Johnny like false hope that that his family's alive. And in issue number 7, which is really cool, they go to this alternate universe called Battle World, where on Battle World, Tony Stark and Captain America have a civil war. Okay, that's not a new story, but it's pretty neat that Captain America has been imprisoned and Tony Stark has been killed by the only person that was able to kind of take the reins. And you want to know who that was, which is really pretty neat? Spider-Man, which is pretty cool. Now, Spider-Man is like the leader of Battle World, and his right-hand man is Doctor Strange. And it's pretty cool because Peter is like this dictator. It's like if you've seen Ragnarok and you know Jeff Goldblum's character, that's kind of like what Peter Parker has become in this book. And he's walking around with Captain America's mask with Spider-Man eyes over it, and like a cloak with a fur collar, like a pimp, which is kind of weird. And it's called Battle World because he puts his prisoners inside of like a Roman gladiator kind of pit, a Colosseum type of thing, and he makes them fight monsters. So when Johnny and Ben show up to Battle World, he captures them, puts them in the pit, makes them fight a couple of monsters, and they have to fight their way out. Now, they have been traveling with a scientist. Forget her name. I think her name is Rancha. Yeah, Rancha. Rancha? R-A-N-C-H-A. Rancha. And Rancha is the scientist who kind of knows how to use the technology to get them from multiverse to multiverse. And she promised them that she was going to lead them around to help them look for Sue and Reed. However, she has her own agenda, and we find out what that agenda is in this issue. Her agenda is basically she has a sister on normal Earth that is very sick, I think. So she's been trying to go to these different multiverses, trying to find a version of her sister that's not sick and take that body back with her to kind of put her present day sister's mind into the body of a sister that's not sick. But every world that they visit, she finds her sister, and her sister's either dead or sick, like she is on Earth, on our Earth, or she's even more sick. On this particular Battle World planet, she finds a version of her sister that's kind of like a Mad Max kind of character, where she's physically fit, but her mind is a little warped from the dictatorship of Spider-Man. And she gets killed in the battle when Ben and Johnny are fighting the beasts in the gladiator pit, and she leaves Ben and Johnny on that world. She has the technology part that can allow her to travel between multiverses, and she leaves Johnny and Ben on that planet by themselves to fend for themselves, which is not cool, man. Which leads you into the next book, which is Marvel 2-in-1 number 8. Now, if you remember from our last show, the Fantastic Four's powers, all the individual powers of the Fantastic Four are tied to one another. So the further apart the members of the Fantastic Four are from each other, the more their powers wane, or the less their powers get. So at this point now, in issue 8, Johnny and Ben have been stranded on Battleworld for 2 months, and they are completely powerless. Johnny has no flaming Human Torch power. Ben is just a normal guy. He looks like Ben. He's not the Thing anymore. He has no super strength or anything like that. They have normal jobs. I think Ben works in like a coal mine or something like that. And they're kind of stranded on this planet. They have their version on this planet of Amadeus Cho, who in our Earth, I guess, is one of the new Hulks. I don't read any of the new Hulk stuff, so I don't know much about Amadeus Cho. But in this book, he is like a computer genius. That's not a very stereotypical thing of an Asian kid, but whatever, what are you gonna do? And he's helping them put out signals through the multiverse to help find Sue and Reed. So they're sending out these signals throughout the multiverse, kind of almost like an SOS for Sue and Reed, and they don't really get anywhere. This issue was kind of slow. It was just more or less the conflict between Ben and Johnny on the Battleworld planet, losing their powers, and they kind of get mad at each other, and they have a fist fight. And Johnny gets mad at Ben for not telling him that his family might be dead, and blah 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 blah. But yeah, so that's that. That one was okay, not as good as issue number 7. Issue number 7 was very good. Darth Vader, number 18. Really enjoyed this book. Liked this book a lot, actually. First 17 issues were up and down for me. There were some really good issues at the beginning. I want to say like the first 5-6 issues were very, very good. Then there was a little bit of a lull in the middle between like 7 and 12. It got good again from like 12 to 15. And the past 2 issues were kind of lame. Issue 18 is one of my favorite issues of the whole run, of the whole arc of the 18. This is definitely one of my favorites. And what you'll notice of me is I like stories that take a break from the continuity of the entire arc and kind of just give you, it's like one-shots. I like little one-shot stories. But this is still inside the story of what's going on. But it takes a break, because what this whole series is about, this series takes place right after Revenge of the Sith. So this happens between the end of Revenge of the Sith and the beginning of New Hope. Yeah, I guess New Hope. He is a new, Darth Vader is still new. He's still a new entity. The first issue opens up with him coming off the table for the first time as Darth Vader. And Palpatine sends him on a mission to find, or to kind of gain his own lightsaber. So that's why the first 5 issues are great. It was Darth Vader going around killing Jedi, looking for a lightsaber that he could make his own, which is really cool. And then once he gets his lightsaber, Palpatine gives him his orders, and his orders are to go around the galaxy looking for remaining Jedi that survived Order 66, and to kill them all. So that's basically what the whole arc has been about. After he gets his lightsaber, he then has to go around killing Jedi. And it got a little boring. So the first couple of Jedi that he kills, you're interested. And there's only so much that the writers can do with him having to go around killing Jedi. He overpowers them all. Sometimes he gets his butt kicked a little bit, but always finds a way at the end to come out on top. And it gets kind of boring. It's the same story over and over again. He goes to some planet, he finds a Jedi, he fights them a little bit. Sometimes they'll stretch out a fight over 2 or 3 issues, or sometimes he'll just end it in 1 issue. But for the most part, all the stories have kind of been the same. In this issue, it's him versus Tarkin, which is really, really cool. We all know Tarkin from the Star Wars series. I think he was reanimated in Rogue One. Was it Rogue One that he was reanimated for? Or was it the newest episode 9 or whatever it was, episode 7, I don't know. But Tarkin's on this planet, and Vader's coming after him. You have no reason why Vader's coming after him, but the whole book is the hunt between Vader and Tarkin. Tarkin's not just running away. Tarkin is actually trying to learn about his enemy as he kind of retreats through this planet that he's on. It doesn't really tell you what planet he's on. He's on the Outer Rim, on Chandar's Folly. I guess that's Outer Rim, Chandar's Folly is the location of this book. And Tarkin has a team that he's traveling with of, his little army. And as he moves through this world and Darth Vader is hunting him down, he's learning about Darth Vader and how Darth Vader hunts. And systematically, Tarkin tries to learn how to defeat Vader. And the first thing that he does is he removes his lightsaber from him. He says, if he doesn't have a lightsaber, if he has a lightsaber, no one is a match for Vader. But without his lightsaber, you might be able to outsmart him or outwit him. So the first thing that they do is they get the lightsaber away from him, Tarkin and his team. And then little by little, Vader is dismantling the team that Tarkin has. In the end, it looks like Vader's going to win because he outwits all of the people in Tarkin's camp by using like a camouflaged, there's an animal on this planet that has the ability to camouflage itself into whatever environment it's in. And he kills one of these animals and uses its flesh as like a cape, which is pretty interesting. And he sneaks up on Tarkin and the whole team that Tarkin has. But at the end, Tarkin gets him with some like lightning blast or something like that. I don't know if Tarkin gets him or if he just gets struck by lightning. He might just get struck by lightning. I don't think Tarkin has anything to do with it. It kind of paralyzes Darth Vader. And then at the end, they tell you that Tarkin and Vader had an agreement that he was getting bored with hunting Jedi because there weren't many of them. So to stay like in shape, he wanted to hunt Tarkin. So it was kind of like a war game that they were playing. Tarkin didn't tell his team that this was going on. So which is kind of messed up because he let Vader kill a lot of his team members. And just for this game that Vader was playing, which is a really cool concept, right? Like Vader's bored. Vader needs to stay in shape for killing Jedi. And the only way for him to do it is to have this like little Tarkin matchup or Tarkin war game, which was pretty cool. It's pretty interesting. And he tells Tarkin, like, if you can kill me, kill me. Try to kill me. And at the end, Tarkin could have killed him because when he gets struck by the lightning, he's completely paralyzed, dead to rights on the floor. But Tarkin doesn't kill him. Tarkin gets him up and gets him into like a sick bay. And then at the end, there's this like big kind of reveal for the next line of story, and it's like Darth Vader continues next month with Fortress Vader. And it got me really excited about Fortress Vader. And let me tell you, Fortress Vader was not good. Issue 19 went back to exactly the same as what I was talking about before. He went to another planet, he found a Jedi, he killed the Jedi, he's moving on. So there's issue 18 and 19 of Darth Vader. 18 was very good, 19 kind of disappointing. Now, next thing I want to talk about is Detective Comics. Detective Comics I've been neglecting because it is up to issue 986, yeah. And I haven't I've been holding on to them since 982. So about 5 books I've been sitting on in my house, not reading, because I wasn't really into Detective Comics the past, I don't know, I want to say maybe 10, 15 issues, because all it did was deal with the Bat Family. And I am not a big fan of the Bat Family in a Batman book. I don't mind the Bat Family on their own. I don't mind Nightwing on his own. I don't mind the Signal in the Signal book. I don't mind Batwoman in a Batwoman book. I don't mind Batgirl in a Batgirl book. I don't mind Jason Todd in a Red Hood book. Or Robin, or whatever. I don't want them all together with Batman. Batman, in my opinion, is better when he's alone. That's just me. I don't want him... I can deal with one sidekick. Okay, I can deal with one Robin with him, or I can deal with him working with Nightwing, but I don't want him working with 7 different people. For me, it takes away from Batman's intellect and his power. So, I think we spoke about Detective Comics a couple shows back, where the Bat Family kind of dispersed and dissolved because of everything that happened in the stories. So I was happy about that. And then I get Detective Comics in my pull, and I put it to the side because the other big books came out. Spider-Man came out, the new issues of Spider-Man. The Justice League started. Avengers started. All these big books happened, so Detective kind of took a back seat. Well, really sorry I did that, because what I found out was this arc I really, really am enjoying. It starts off with 982, called The Curse of Gotham. Curse of Gotham. And then it goes on to a storyline called The Outside, number 1, 2, 3. And it's up to 4 now, I think. And I think there's one more left. I think there's one more issue left. So I don't know if I want to talk about these books now, because I think 987 is going to be the end of this story arc. But just to give you a quick kind of overview of what's going on in these books, is that there's a new villain called Karma. And Karma is a villain that Batman had caught many years back in Russia. And he kind of tortured this guy, and he kind of left him for dead. I don't know if he used like scare toxin, like what the Scarecrow uses. And he kind of like left this guy in the middle of the desert, because he's a drug trafficker, and he kills families and things like that. So he was a bad dude. So he deserved what he got. So Batman, as he was walking away, said, this is karma for everything that you've done. And the man has like these horrible visions of bats and things like that from the fear toxin, or whatever it's called. Well, he comes back to Gotham to kind of seek revenge. And it's not so much revenge. It's very much like, his motives are very much like the motives of Eobard Thawne or Hunter Solomon, where he thinks that the Bat Family makes Batman weaker. So he kind of wants to cleanse Batman of the Bat Family, or whoever's remaining. Because who's left here is Barbara Gordon. You got Duke, who's the Signal. And you got Orphan. And he basically wants them out of Batman's life, so that Batman can be the Batman that he's supposed to be. Now, this is just an ordinary man, so how do you think he can defeat Batman? He buys some special helmet mask helmet from somebody in Russia, some, mob dealer in Russia or whatever, mobster. And this mask gives him the ability to read your thoughts. So it makes it very hard to fight this man, because he can see what moves you're going to do ahead of time. He can see what you're thinking, even if you're not fighting him. So, and all you have to do is like kind of be within a certain range of him, and he can kind of read your thoughts. So it makes it very hard to defend against this guy. And he just kind of goes around terrorizing Gotham City, terrorizing school children and reporters, trying to get Batman to... He wants Batman to give up the Bat Family to kind of save Gotham City and to save himself. There's no finale yet, but the person who makes a guest appearance in this book is Black Lightning, which is really cool, because I never read any Black Lightning stuff. I've never even seen the TV show yet, the CW TV show, Black Lightning. But he seems to be a pretty cool character in this. I'm glad that Detective has been bringing in other characters, because like I'm kind of narrow-minded when it comes to my comic books. I like my Batman, I like my Superman, I like my Spider-Man comics. And if other characters aren't brought into these books, I might not get a chance to see them or to read them. And that's how I got introduced to Booster Gold. Booster Gold was put into the Superman books. Black Lightning, I really enjoy him in these detective comics. So maybe I'll try to pick something up and see what I can read more about him. So yeah, if you're reading detective, I hope you like this story arc, because I do. And if you're not reading detective, pick it up. It's from 982, and I think it's ending in 987 or 988. 987 hasn't come out yet, but yeah, pick that up. We're going to end this show with 3 more books. I got 3 more books lined up here. And I got The Amazing Spider-Man number 3. Don't know how I feel about it. The artwork is phenomenal. Who's on this? Ryan Ottley? Yeah, Ottley's on this. Really, really good artwork. I don't know about the story. So Peter, from issues 1 and 2, if I remember correctly, Peter has been kind of returned to base level by somebody making a plagiarism machine, or a machine that picks up on plagiarism, and they put some of his work through this plagiarism machine, and they find out that one of the papers that he wrote in graduate school to get his PhD or whatever was written by Doc Ock, not him. And this is when Dr. Octopus, or Octavius, was inside of Peter Parker's body during Superior Spider-Man. So technically, Doc Ock wrote it, or Doc Ock's thoughts were what the paper was written by or from. So Pete has been shamed into becoming normal Peter Parker again. So that's all of issue 1. Issue number 2 deals with Peter trying to go back to school so he can kind of redo his graduate degree. And while he's in the classroom with the Lizard Man, his name escapes me right now, but while he's in the classroom, Taskmaster and Black Ant come in to steal some type of piece of hardware, some piece of scientific apparatus from the classroom that he's in, and he promptly dispatches of Taskmaster and Black Ant. And at the end of issue 2, there's Peter Parker and Spider-Man are in the same room, so there's like a clone of Peter, and you're like, great, all we need in Spider-Man is another clone. We haven't messed up Peter Parker stories or Spider-Man stories with enough clones as of yet, with the whole clone conspiracy and the clone saga. We're going to do it again. So issue 3 deals with who this clone is. So apparently, as he was fighting Taskmaster in the classroom, he accidentally turned on the machine that they were trying to steal, zapping himself. And what it does is it's trying to get Dr. Connors is trying to take the lizard part out of his DNA. So what this machine does is it creates 2 individuals, one of which has some of the attributes of the original, and the other has the other remaining attributes of that individual. So it's kind of like taking you and your personality and splitting it in half between you and your clone. Okay, so picture you have a clone, but half of your personality traits go to the clone, and you're left with only half of your personality traits, and your clone has half of your personality traits. Now, or physical traits, it doesn't have to be personality traits. So Peter Parker and Peter Parker's clone have now shared each other's physical and emotional traits. So one of the individuals, Peter Parker, we'll say Spider-Man, the original Spider-Man that was in the room, he still has Spider-Man powers. He has Spidey senses, he has the strength, he's got the wall climbing and whatever else, right? Peter Parker clone does not have any of the Spider-Man powers, but he's a clone of Peter Parker. He has the intellect of Peter Parker. And what they're doing is they're kind of doing like a multiplicity type of thing, where the original Peter Parker gets to play Spider-Man, while Peter Parker clone gets to like go out on dates with Mary Jane and go to school, while the other one just does Spider-Man stuff. Now, I don't know what you would do, but I would prefer to be with Mary Jane and not fighting supervillains. I would much, much, much prefer to hang out and do all types of things with Mary Jane, like go bowling or go to the movies and other stuff. But yeah, that's what this book is about. And of course, there's consequences, because let's say Spider-Man has spider strength, the strength of Spider-Man, but he doesn't have the compassion that Peter Parker has. He used to have the compassion of Peter Parker and the strength of Spider-Man in one body. But when he was hit by the machine and it split him up into a clone, he only retained half of his attributes. The clone got the other half. So what if Peter Parker, the clone, got the compassion part of the personality, and Spider-Man, who still has the strength capabilities, is void of the compassion? Will that lead Spider-Man, when he's in a situation where compassion is needed, to do something that he wouldn't normally do? So that's where it ends. So we'll see about that. The last two books are Robert Kirkman books. Now, I know a lot of you are fans of Walking Dead, things like that. I've been reading Oblivion Song, and on the last episode, I said that I was going to give Oblivion Song one more try. I don't know what to do. I got issue 3. I know it's on like 7 or 8 at this point, but I know I'm a little behind on it. So hopefully it gets better. I'm going to try to stick with it because it's Robert Kirkman and his stuff is usually good. And it's not a superhero story. I'm tired. You don't always want to read superhero stories, right? Well, in issue 2, he goes into the Oblivion and he meets, he's looking for his brother because he thinks his brother's in the Oblivion. And he runs into this man pointing a gun at him. And he wants the guy to show him where the people are living in the Oblivion so he can take them home and he can get them out of the Oblivion. That's where issue 2 ends. Issue 3, he's trying to convince this guy to tell him where everyone else lives in the Oblivion, and the guy doesn't want to tell him, and then a monster in the Oblivion comes up upon them, and the guy who's been living in the Oblivion kills him, and Nathan, who's the guy who keeps going back and forth between the real world and the Oblivion, is like, why'd you kill him? You shouldn't have killed him. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure he killed some of these monsters at the beginning of this book. But anyway, he comes back because the Oblivion guy kind of beats Nathan up, and Nathan comes back to Earth, and he's talking to one of the scientists, and one of the scientists is like, maybe the people that are in the Oblivion don't want to come back, and maybe they shouldn't come back. And Nathan's all like, what are you talking about? That seems ridiculous. And he's like, well, maybe they're better off being in the Oblivion. Maybe being here, coming back here from the Oblivion, is more traumatic than actually just staying there and dealing with what the Oblivion has to give them. So now he has this like internal conflict where he feels bad because what he does is he goes into the Oblivion and he brings back as many humans as he possibly can. And he doesn't know if he's hurting them or doing them any good. So the book ends where he finds one of the girls that he brought back from the Oblivion many, I don't want to say years back, but it's in the past. A while back, he brings back this girl. This girl's been kind of reintroduced to the world as we know it, not the Oblivion. And it's taken, it's the readjustment period's been pretty long and hard on her. And he asks her, would you have been better if I would have just left you in the Oblivion? Because he feels guilty. And she's like, what, are you kidding? Of course not. She's like, my worst day here is nothing compared to my best day in the Oblivion. So, don't feel bad that you're bringing people back. You're definitely not hurting anybody by bringing them back here. So that's what this book was about, and that's how that book ended. So I'm gonna keep going with it. I'm gonna give it another shot. I know there's more on the shelves for me to buy, so I'll definitely pick another one up. And the last one is the newest book from Robert Kirkman and Chris Burnham. It's called Die, Die, Die. Now, my comic book shop is in the middle of moving locations. They're not moving very far. They're only moving about 2 stores down from where they are now, but it's a bigger place. And I'm walking through, and they're kind of all disheveled inside because they're in the midst of moving. And it says, number 1, it says new, has a little new sticker on the bottom. I was like, oh, what's this? And it says Robert Kirkman on it. And I couldn't even read the title because it's a skull. And it has die, exclamation point, die, exclamation point, die, exclamation point, around the skull in a circle. And exclamation points and the eyes in die are very confusing to my eye. So I couldn't read what the hell the freaking word said. So I got my comic book guy. I said, Sacco, come here, man. I was like, is this new? He says, yeah, man. new Robert Kirkman book. We didn't even know we were getting it. It was a surprise. We open up the box and there it is. It's only limited amounts per store and all this stuff. I was like, what's the name of it? Because I'm looking at him like, die. And he's like, it's die, you moron. So I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I see it now. I could definitely see it now. And there was all these different variant covers. It says mature readers only, graphic images inside. And it's two guys covered in blood. And on the bottom of the cover is a woman sitting at a desk. And some of the covers didn't have any of the individuals on the covers with word balloons. So there were some with just the figures, no word balloons. Then there were some covers with the figures with blank word balloons. Then there were some covers with the figures saying stuff at the top, but at the bottom with the lady in her desk, she didn't say anything. So I was like, well, which one should I get? And he's like, well, this one is the one that's most sought after right now. And it's the two figures on the top covered in blood. One guy saying, I'm Paul. The other one says, I'm Nate. And the lady sitting at her desk says, I'm drunk. So that's the one that he told me to buy. Hopefully it becomes something of value someday. Really interesting book. Really graphic, really gory. Reminds me of like a good old-fashioned Punisher book. Lots of blood, lots of gore, lots of violence, hyper-violence. Cool little story. Pretty much there's like a secret, they call it a cabal within the United States government that kind of makes things right that you don't know about. Like when someone is going to kind of do something bad or when something is going to go wrong, this secret cabal will take care of the situation without anybody knowing. And it's run by a senator, and the senator has a hitman. And the whole story is basically how her hitman gets captured while on a job, and she sends one of her other hitmen out to go find him or go get him. But the cool thing about this book was her conversations with the initial hitman. The initial hitman's name was Paul. He's the one that gets captured. Half of the book is her conversations with Paul about how to do the job that they need to do. So there's this, I don't know if he's a prime minister, but he's somebody in the UK. He's part of the parliament in UK, and he's a pedophile. And she wants to kill this man, but she wants to humiliate him. She doesn't want to kill him in office. She wants to wait till he's out of office. She wants to publicly humiliate this man. And the way they have to go about it, because there are other variables involved, other people that are involved in the the parliament there, that they go through 3 different scenarios, which is really, really cool. And it's the majority of the book. They go through the 3 different scenarios and how they're all going to play out. And that's when you learn which one they actually choose. So it starts off, the book starts off with, this action going on. You don't know why this action's happening. But once they tell you the 3 scenarios of how they can go about killing this guy in the way they want to by humiliating him, you realize which one of the 3 that they picked, because that's how the book opened. And then the last, I want to say, quarter of the book kind of deals with her, the senator, telling her other henchman that he has to go find Paul, and the other henchman or the other hitman is called Nate. So Nate is going out and looking for Paul now. So that's what that book is about. It's really cool, and I'm gonna give it a shot. Definitely gonna keep going with it, and I think that's how we're gonna end today. I talked a lot about a lot of different books. Spoke for an hour. Struggled through it though. Sorry that I sound the way I do, but we don't want to get too far behind on these, and if we I don't want to skip out on 2 weeks of comic books, because then I'll have a whole bunch to read. So next week, what you're going to hear is me and Joe talk about Siege, which was a request from one of our biggest fans, Phil Batista. And we're also going to be talking about other books that we read, such as The Fantastic Four #1. I don't know if anybody's read that yet. I've read it already. And I'll let you know what I think about it, what I thought about it. Talk about the finale of Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps. Talk about Superman and the Phantom Zone. Talk about Hawkman a little bit and whatever Joe has read. But until next week, I'm Steve. And on behalf of Joe, who's having a good time over on the West Coast, we'll see you next week, everybody. Bye. We'll see you next week, everybody. Bye. We'll see you next week, everybody.